Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday number 45. Today's topic is the patterns of watching must outnumber the patterns of attachment. Questioner: as a meditator, what am I actually doing that will make me shift from unenlightened to enlightened? What is the tipping point that makes a human mind shift into an enlightened mind? Well, just the very question itself just means that you are in a pretty evolved state, that you're interested in knowing what the actual detail is that makes a person shift from an unenlightened state into an enlightened state. And you're right, there are many, many stages to this. And the only way that we can know how to take that shift or take that leap is because we are doing this subtle discernment that is going on as we get freer and freer and less attached and identified with the external world for our happiness. And we are wanting to know what exactly is the thing that is going to take us into that enlightened state. So let's talk about that. You as a human being living an ordinary state of consciousness, you've been accumulating patterns of duality from this incarnation and all other incarnations, and they're all accumulated, and they're sitting in some kind of memory bank. And now you as a human being, you are patterned to act in a dualistic way, to see things in a dualistic way. And that, of course, creates suffering, and that perpetuates this cycle or the wheel. So every decision you make, every thought you have, every action you make creates a karma. And that creates the pattern of duality. So it's coming from this pattern or this practice of chasing after our desires and getting attached to things, thinking that will make us feel secure and safe. So we've got these patterns, and they're well grooved, and it's almost impossible, unless there's some intervention, to get out of this cycle. There's no way to get out of it. And these patterns are also under the influence of the gunas, especially the tamas guna. The tamas, remember, is the downward spiral. So there are certain behaviors and actions that you do and thinking that you have that will make you go into a negative spiral. And then there's the rajas guna. Like if you're constantly busy, distracting yourself constantly, then that's going to be like a circling. You're not going to get released at all. So these are strong habits and patterns. As a human being, we're just stuck in the cycle. So what's the intervention? What's the difference? Well, you as a meditator knows that you have to meditate. And you need a daily practice and an intense practice in order for that liberation state to occur, or that shift in consciousness to occur. But what exactly is the shift? What exactly is happening? Well, let's stay on that topic of patterns. We need to have patterns or memories or past experiences accumulated of being in states of altered states, or where you've done very positive, reinforcing karmic actions like helping others, serving others, taking care of yourself, doing yoga, doing meditation. These, every time you practice a yoga activity, And yoga just meaning that anything that takes you to a higher elevated state of consciousness, a state of union. So that's what yoga means. So anytime you do an activity that leads you towards unity consciousness, then now you are accumulating sanskars or memories or impressions or patterns in that mode. And that mode is the mode of oneness. So now you're going to get anchored and stabilized in these more uplifting patterns. And the thing is that this is not just the answer for the shift in consciousness. What this does is it just paves the ground in which it paves the ground so that you have outnumbered your negative patterns or your attachment patterns, and you have increased the more positive, uplifting patterns, the patterns of watching and observing. But this is not all you need in order for a shift to take place. That is good for good karma. So I would call that once you've established a really good life and really good practice in life, then your next stage is the development of the intellect. It's purifying the intellect so that you are learning to see things as they are and not as you have been projecting them that you want them to be. So your intellect has shifted. Now, this is what happens through the practice, is your intellect will shift. And now it's focused on the light. And the light becomes your guide, as opposed to the forms of the world becoming your guide, and as if you're chasing the forms for your happiness. Now the light, the source of all of things, become your guide. So your intellect is so purified. And after all this practice of meditation and yoga and good company and all of that, that is creating a concentrated state of mind. So now you're in this place where you could take a leap. Your mind is fully concentrated, so it can do anything. And you have no past negative sanskars that are dragging you downward. And your mind is clear, your intellect is clear. So now the last thing that's there is to meditate on the knower of everything. Because as long as there's a knower in anything that you experience, there's still a sense of separation or duality. So as long as I know that I'm speaking to you, then I see you as separate from myself, the knower of what's happening. So even that is still a duality. And it goes subtler and subtler and subtler. So now, instead of, and the leap is, it's not just that I'm going to, drop my ego identity and dissolve it into, somehow there's a trick to dissolve my ego into the infinite ocean of oneness. It's not like that. In actual fact, what happens is the illusion fades away, because it's an illusion that I see you as separate from me, or I'm knowing you as separate from me, or I'm watching you as separate from me. That's the illusion. So the next stage is, now that everything's in place, all my good patterns are in place, I have a healthy perspective on life, my intellect is purified, there are these last little practices that need to happen that finally do the job. And it's really removing the last veil of ignorance, the last veil of projecting an illusion that anything is separate from me. So it comes down to, it's all me everywhere. So my patterns have to be there in place, my good patterns, my healthy perspectives, seeing the world in a beautiful way. I have to have a lot of that. Like every day, I am seeing the whole world in a positive way. And there's very little that will take me out of that positive perspective. So for you, that's what you need to develop. Make sure that the whole world is always coming from that place of oneness. So that's well established in you, and that you have experiences of light and divinity, and your perspective of the world is that it's not an enemy, it's on your side. Once that's in place, then the subtle practices can take place, such as now, I am seeing you, and the next step would be, you are me, I am you. It's really just one being, and there's nothing separate from all of this, or in all of this. All right, well, so that's our Wisdom Wednesday on the patterns of watching must outnumber the patterns of attachment. Thank you for Wisdom Wednesday today, and see you in the next video. Bye for now.